Hi, I'm Coach Hallis. I'm the girls' head wrestling coach in Hopewell, Virginia. Though Hopewell is a 3A high school and does not have a lot of wrestling tradition, let alone girls wrestling, we've managed to build a successful girls program here in Hopewell High School. We've had a girls state champion. We finished the season with six girls on our team last year, and this year, in Virginia's first year of fully sanctioned girls wrestling, we finished with eight girls. And I'm making this video for anybody who is in the position that I was a few years ago, where you are trying to advocate for a girls program in your school, or you're trying to go from a strictly boys or co-ed program to offering something for girls, especially if you're in a state like Virginia where you've just recently sanctioned girls wrestling. So I'm going to share with you today 5 tips or pieces of advice that I've found successful and helpful, and I would encourage anybody to sound off in the comments about other things that I don't mention that you found useful in helping to grow this program for girls. So the first one that is to advocate for a separate coaching position. I know many places are not quite there yet. I don't know where the law steps in here with Title IX, but I know that to be on the right side of history, it's time to push for your boys and girls to have separate coaches. Specifically, that means when you designate a boys coach and a girls coach, or a set of boys coaches and girls coaches, it doesn't mean you can't help each other in the practice room. It doesn't mean you can't run simultaneous practices together, but it does mean that you have a designated person, just like you do for all of your other sports programs that are separate. You have in most places a boys head basketball coach and a girls head basketball coach. You can have separate practices as needed, but more importantly, it allows you to take girls to competitions that are simultaneous with boys competitions. If there's a girls tournament somewhere, you don't have to pick between the two. You have coaching staff that can take your girls and other coaching staff that can take your boys. That's how it should be. That's the argument that should be made. And it's something that we need to push to ADs. If they aren't supporting it, it's something that if your ADs do support, it needs to be pushed to school boards. And so once you have that in place, once you have stipends allocated, and positions created, you can start building your program out from there. It's something that fortunately our AD and our school have supported. So we have a head coach for our boys and an assistant coach for our boys, and we have a head coach position and an assistant coach position for our girls, and that's the way it should be. When you go to individual tournaments, as most of you hearing this already know, there's times when you need multiple coaches. We had 8 girls on our team. There were times this year when you have multiple girls competing at the same time. There's a reason that a wrestling team has more than one coach, and the boys and girls wrestling team should be respected accordingly for what they are. So the second thing, and this is huge, it's high on this list, for me, is finding a quality female coach. Now, when I say a quality coach, I mean the ability to coach, and I start with personality. I start with those priorities. Why is that person there? This does not have to be a quality wrestler. This does not have to be somebody with wrestling experience. It doesn't even have to be somebody with coaching experience. Everybody starts coaching without coaching experience. So I look for somebody who cares about kids, who's going to be a good role model, who can help our student athletes without having to have any wrestling background. Okay, those are the things that they can learn. They can develop those things along the way. So I was fortunate enough to hire somebody who had a lot of coaching experience, who was a great athlete herself, but she had no wrestling experience. She's never wrestled a match in her life. In her first year, she was willing to come in and just learn and listen and ask questions. And it does take some courage on your part as an experienced coach to find that right person who maybe is in your school building or in your school division, or maybe it's a wrestling mom, but to find somebody that you think is going to be good for kids. And even though they have no experience in that field, to advocate for them and say, hey, I believe you would be good for this, and it would be good for our girls. So in that first year, my assistant coach was doing a lot of learning and gradually picked up on a lot of things. By about 3 quarters through the year, I was sitting next to her and having her lead calls from the corner. And then by the end of that first season, I was able to step back and just, I'm going to be over here. You coach this match on your own. And now in her second year, she had very few questions and she really understands things. And she's been in practice for 2 years now, just like some of the girls that started 2 years ago. Now she is able to pretty much do anything. If I were to miss practice, I could trust her to run practice for me. And sure, I'm still more of the instructional leader in that space, but she's not out of place. Girls can ask her questions about wrestling technique, and if she doesn't know, she just asks for some help from one of our other coaches. And if she does, she answers it on her own. And we know that we have certain strengths and weaknesses. So that is how you develop that person to be in that role. But again, you want to find somebody who brings things to the table without it having to be anything that has to do with instructional expertise. So someone who girls just are going to feel more comfortable going to a woman about some things than they would going to a man about some things. So that is something that I would lead into my third piece of advice, which is hold a separate interest meeting and advertise accordingly for your girls wrestling program. With that is include your female coach with your marketing. Put her face on a poster. You can put your face on that poster too, but you should make it clear that, hey, we have a female coach here. A lot of parents and girls are understandably going to feel more comfortable with this particular sport if they know that there's a woman in the room, if they know there's a woman on the bus or in the van. At the hotel, whatever the situation is, there's lots of reasons to have female representation in your coaching staff, and that will help with recruitment. Now, I don't want to gloss over the thing I said about having a separate interest meeting. It informs your school when you say there's an interest meeting for girls wrestling this Thursday. It informs them. It forces people to perk up and listen to that. Oh, that's a separate thing. That is its own thing that exists. And when you have that meeting, you are able to work with that specific group of people. You're able to establish more firmly that this is its own thing and that they can feel comfortable with that. So advertise those things separately. Have another one for boys wrestling. And if any girls show up to that, obviously you give them the information. We noticed an immediate spark, an increase in interest with those two things. Having a female wrestling coach on our staff and having a separate interest meeting that she was able to participate in and that we were able to include her on advertising. The fourth thing is invest in a set of female slash alternate uniforms. So this is an investment. This is the first thing that is really going to cost money other than maybe a coaching stipend. But it is something worth pushing for. Traditionally, and you've got to start with whatever you have. And when I first started having girls participating, we did the same thing. We would give them a compression shirt to put on under a boy's singlet, and we rolled with it, and that was okay, but it's not ideal. And if you have, one coach once pointed this out to me, if you had a boy on the cheer team, you wouldn't force him to wear a skirt and just put pants on underneath it. You would get him a uniform that is befitting of boys. So ideally, both sets get a set of singlets and alternate uniforms. Some girls, just like boys, some feel good in a singlet, some feel good in a compression shirt and shorts. I would strongly recommend being able to have both of those. I have girls that are more like tomboy-like, and they actually feel better in a compression shirt and shorts, and then I have others who embrace the singlet. So relative to what it brings a school to have a fully functional girls wrestling team, the expense is well worth it to invest in. And then the last piece of advice, number 5, is I would say balance how you combine and separate your boys and girls teams. So our teams, they practice together. We have boys have captains, girls have captains. They start warming up together. Boys and girls captains call out stretches and warm ups and things like that together. And then when we practice, boys are on one half of the room, our girls are on the other half of the room. Very rarely do they drill or do live goes with one another. So our girls are practicing with our girls, our boys are practicing with our boys. When we call in for instruction, everybody comes together, take a knee, we go over things together in the same room, then we spread back out, boys over here, girls over here. Um, at the end of practice, when it's time to break out and coaches say their last things at the end of the day, the boys and girls all stretch together. Again, captains lead that, and then boys go to the boys coaches, girls come over to the girls coaches, and it allows a separation that makes it clear that this is a separate team. And our coaches may have some specific things to go over, whether that's the upcoming competitions, that is a completely separate schedule from the boys' schedule, or just things that we noticed in practice. Maybe the boys had a really good practice and the girls were kind of dragging, and there's a different mood that needs to be addressed. So, most of those things are free, they cost no money. Just advocating for the right things and structural changes that make things more comfortable for girls. And then as you get those first three, four girls that come together, that are practice partners that work together, you can start building a program a lot easier from there. It's getting those first few and getting people who are going to stick around. That's the tough part, but it helps a lot if you have separate coaches, you have a female coach in your room, you have separate interest meetings that allow you to draw a distinction or establish a distinction between your teams. You invest in some female uniforms, and you balance how you combine and separate your boys and girls teams in practice. I hope this is helpful.